The first time I saw a human bond with an Earth creature, I thought I was witnessing a malfunction in my optical sensors. I'm Krell, Galactic Enforcement Officer, 23 cycles in the field, specializing in diplomatic extractions and hostage negotiations. I've seen combat across 16 systems, survived 3 attempted assassinations, and once talked down a Vargothian warlord who'd consumed 17 liters of fermented mercury. I don't scare easy. But standing in that jungle clearing on the human colony world of Verdant 9, watching what happened next, that rewired my entire understanding of predator bonding. Let me back up. The colony had been overrun by mercenaries from the Carthax Syndicate. Nasty bunch. They specialized in kidnapping settlements and ransoming them back to their governments. Standard procedure: swoop in, round up civilians, make demands, collect payment, leave. Usually worked without much bloodshed because most species value their offspring enough to pay up quickly. Humans, though? Humans don't follow the standard playbook. The Carthax had grabbed about 40 colonists, mostly children from the settlement school. They'd herded them into a makeshift camp deep in the jungle, far from the main colony hub. By the time Galactic Enforcement got the distress signal and sent me in with a reconnaissance team, the mercenaries had already executed 2 teachers to prove they meant business. My squad touched down 3 kilometers from the camp. Silent insertion, full tactical gear, the works. We had 12 operatives, all seasoned professionals. The plan was simple: observe, assess, report back, wait for the assault team. We never got that far. As we approached the perimeter, our scanner tech, a 4-armed Quellan named Vrix, froze mid-step. His tertiary hand shot up in the universal signal for contact. Movement, he whispered through our comlink. 30 meters, bearing 270. I raised my weapon, peering through the dense foliage. The jungle was thick here, all tangled vines and massive fern-like plants that blocked visibility beyond a few meters. Everything smelled wet and alive and slightly wrong, the way alien biospheres always do when your species didn't evolve there. Then I saw it, a child. Human. Maybe 7 or 8 standard years old, if I was guessing right. Female, with dark skin, and even darker hair pulled into 2 puffs on either side of her head. She wore torn clothing, dirt-smeared and blood-stained. Her face was streaked with tears, but her eyes were absolutely calm. She was walking toward the mercenary camp, not running, not hiding, walking, like she was heading to a market instead of into the arms of armed criminals who'd already killed her teachers. And beside her, matching her pace exactly, was a creature I'd only seen in the human database files, a honey badger. Now, if you're not familiar with Earth fauna, let me educate you. A honey badger is roughly half a meter long, maybe weighs 10 kilograms soaking wet. It looks like someone took a miniature bear, stretched it out, gave it terrible attitude problems, and removed its capacity for fear. The database listed it as Mellivora capensis and included 17 warning labels about its temperament. Humans called it the most fearless animal on Earth. Looking at it waddle beside this child, I thought the database was exaggerating. I was wrong. "Sir," Vrix hissed, "should we intercept?" I held up one hand. Something felt off about this whole situation. The kid was too calm. The animal was too focused. They moved like a unit, like they'd done this before. We followed at a distance, staying low and quiet. The mercenary camp came into view through breaks in the foliage. I counted 14 Carthax soldiers, all heavily armed with plasma rifles. They'd set up a perimeter of force barriers, motion sensors, the works. Professional operation. These weren't amateurs. The children were clustered in the center, sitting in the dirt under a camouflage tarp. I counted 38. All human, all young, all terrified. 2 Carthax guards stood directly over them, weapons ready. The commander, a massive brute with scar tissue covering half his face, paced near the communications array. He was probably waiting for confirmation of payment transfer. Then the little girl stepped into the clearing. Every weapon swiveled toward her. Targeting lasers painted red dots across her chest. Well, the commander said, his translator rendering his clicking speech into something we could understand. Gotta run away. Bring her back to the group. 2 soldiers moved forward, weapons lowered but ready. The honey badger, which had been partially hidden behind the girl's leg, stepped into full view. One of the approaching soldiers stopped. "Sir, there's an animal." The commander glanced over, uninterested. "So? This planet's full of wildlife. Shoot it if it gets close." The girl didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, tears still wet on her face, hands at her sides. The first soldier reached out to grab her shoulder, and that's when she whispered something. So quiet I almost missed it through our audio pickups. "Go." I've seen a lot of violence in my career. I've witnessed orbital bombardments that turned cities to glass. I've watched Vargothian death squads tear through fortifications like they were made of paper. I've seen things that gave me nightmares for cycles afterward. But I have never, in my entire life, seen anything move the way that Honey Badger moved. It was a blur. A streak of black and white fury that covered 3 meters in less than a second. The first soldier didn't even have time to scream before the creature was on him. Claws raking across his face, teeth sinking into his throat. The Carthax went down hard, gurgling, hands scrabbling at the animal that was systematically shredding every vital point it could reach. The second soldier tried to bring his weapon up. The Honey Badger released the first soldier, who was now definitely dead or dying, and launched itself at the second. It hit him mid-chest with enough force to stagger him backward. Claws found purchase on his tactical vest, teeth found his face. The screaming started then. "Shoot it!" the commander roared. "Shoot that thing!" Plasma bolts lit up the clearing, but the Honey Badger was already moving, already on to its next target. It dropped to the ground as shots seared through the air where it had been, then surged forward with that same terrifying speed. A third soldier went down, the creature going for his legs first, hamstringing him, then climbing up his body to reach his throat. "It's too fast," someone shouted. "Spread out. Cover formation." But the Carthax were panicking now. Professional soldiers, trained mercenaries, reduced to chaos by 10 kilograms of earth mammal that apparently didn't understand the concept of self-preservation. The Honey Badger didn't dodge. It didn't take cover. It just attacked, over and over, with mechanical precision. Every movement was designed to maim, to kill, to move on to the next target. It took hits, plasma bolts that would have dropped most creatures its size, but it just kept going. Fourth soldier down. Fifth. Sixth. The children were screaming now too, but not in fear. They were cheering. "Get it, Scrapper," one boy yelled. "Tear him up," another shouted. Scrapper. The girl had named the murder machine Scrapper. The commander tried to fall back toward the communications array, firing wildly. His shots hit dirt, trees, even one of his own soldiers who'd stumbled into his line of fire. The Honey Badger was everywhere and nowhere. A constant moving target that kept appearing exactly where it would do the most damage. Seventh soldier. Eighth. 2 of the remaining mercenaries tried to make a run for their transport ship at the edge of the clearing. The Honey Badger intercepted them both, taking down the first with a leap that seemed to defy physics, then pivoting mid-kill to grab the second by his weapon arm and drag him down into biting range. Ninth. 10th. Less than 3 minutes had passed since the girl whispered go. 10 trained soldiers, dead or dying, taken apart by an animal that weighed less than most species' standard rations pack. The remaining 4 mercenaries, including the commander, had formed a tight circle, weapons pointing in every direction. They were standing over the huddled children, using them as shields. "Stay back," the commander shouted, his translator crackling with distortion from his panic. "I'll kill them all, I swear I'll do it." The Honey Badger stopped. It sat down at the edge of the clearing, maybe 5 meters from the defensive circle. Blood matted its fur. I could see at least 3 wounds where plasma had grazed or hit it directly. One ear was partially burned off. It sat there, perfectly still, and stared at them. The little girl walked forward again. Same calm walk. Same wet tears on her cheeks. "Kids, stay back," the commander yelled, swinging his weapon toward her. She stopped, looked up at him with those calm, dark eyes. "You hurt Miss Tamara and Mr. James," she said quietly. "Yeah, well, your government should have paid faster," the commander snarled. "They were nice," the girl continued, like he hadn't spoken. "Miss Tamara gave me extra dessert at lunch. Mr. James helped me with my math homework. I don't care about your dead teachers, you little." "Scrapper cares," the girl said. The Honey Badger made a sound. Not a growl, not a hiss. Something lower, deeper. A sound that shouldn't have come from something so small. One of the other mercenaries, his voice shaking. "Sir, maybe we should just let them go. Take the ship and—" "Shut up," the commander snapped. "We're not leaving without payment. They'll transfer the credits, or we start shooting kids." I was preparing to give the order for my team to move in. Consequences be damned. When the girl did. Something that made my blood run cold. She smiled. "Okay," she said softly. "Scrapper?" "All of them." The honey badger moved. What happened next lasted maybe 90 seconds, but it felt like hours. The mercenaries tried to shoot, tried to run, tried to use the children as shields. None of it mattered. The honey badger went through them like they were training dummies. It ignored the plasma fire, ignored the attempts to kick it away, ignored everything except its singular purpose: eliminate threats. The commander was last. He'd managed to grab one of the children, a young boy, and was holding him as a shield. The honey badger paused, circling, looking for an opening. "Call it off!" the commander screamed. "Call it off, or I snap his neck." The little girl tilted her head, considering. Then she said something in a language my translator didn't catch. Human dialect, probably something local. The honey badger stopped circling. It sat down again. The commander laughed, a desperate, broken sound. "That's right. You can't." The boy in his arms went limp, dropping his full weight suddenly. The commander's grip slipped for just a fraction of a second. It was enough. The honey badger covered the distance in one leap. The commander went down hard, the boy rolling free. What followed wasn't pretty, wasn't clean, wasn't anything I want to describe in detail. When it was over, all 14 mercenaries were down. Most were dead. The ones who weren't wouldn't last long without immediate medical attention. The honey badger, Scrapper, limped back to the little girl. It sat at her feet, panting, bleeding from multiple wounds. She knelt down and hugged it. "Good boy," she whispered. "Good boy, Scrapper." Then she looked up at the other children, who were standing now, staring at the carnage with a mixture of shock and awe. "We can go home now," she announced. "The bad people are gone." That's when I stepped into the clearing, my team behind me. All 12 of us, trained professionals, armed to the teeth, wearing full tactical gear. The little girl looked at us. Her tears had dried. Her face was still covered in dirt and blood, though I realized none of the blood was hers. "Are you here to help?" she asked. I holstered my weapon. "Yeah, kid, we're here to help. You okay?" She nodded. Scrapper protected us. I looked down at the honey badger. It looked back at me with black eyes that held absolutely no fear. Just assessment. It was deciding whether I was a threat. I very carefully sat down, making myself smaller, less threatening. "That's one impressive friend you've got there," I said. "He's my best friend," she said simply. "I found him when he was a baby. His mama got sick. I fed him and took care of him, and now he takes care of me. I can see that." I glanced at the bodies. "Does he, do this often?" "Only when people are mean to us," she said. Then, with heartbreaking earnestness, "He's really gentle most of the time. He likes belly rubs and eating fruit." Right. Belly rubs. The creature that had just dismantled 14 armed mercenaries liked belly rubs. My team was already moving through the camp, securing the area, checking on the other children. The colony's medical team would be here within the hour. Everything was under control. Except I couldn't stop staring at that honey badger, trying to reconcile the killing machine I'd just witnessed with the good boy sitting at this child's feet, letting her scratch behind his remaining intact ear. "What's your name?" I asked the girl. "Nina," she said. "Nina Torres." "Well, Nina Torres, I think you just saved everyone. You were very brave." She shook her head. "I wasn't brave. I was scared the whole time. But Miss Tamara always said when we're scared, we should do something anyway. So I did something." "You certainly did." She looked at me then, really looked at me. And I saw something in her eyes that reminded me why humans were rapidly becoming one of the most respected and feared species in the Galactic Council. "The bad people hurt my teachers," she said quietly. "They made my friends cry. They said they were going to hurt us if they didn't get money." A pause. "Nobody gets to hurt my friends." "No," I agreed. "No, they don't." Nina stood up, still holding Scrapper, who had to weigh nearly a third of what she did. Can we go home now? I want to tell my parents about Miss Tamara and Mr. James. They'll be sad. Everyone will be sad. Yeah, we can go home. As my team escorted the children back toward the colony, I fell into step beside Vrix. Did you record all of that? I asked quietly. All four of his arms twitched, his species equivalent of a nervous laugh. Every second, sir. Though I'm not sure anyone's going to believe it. Oh, they'll believe it. We've got the bodies to prove it. Sir? He hesitated. What exactly are humans? I watched Nina walking ahead of us, still carrying her honey badger, surrounded by the other children who kept touching Scrapper's fur like he was some kind of hero, which I suppose he was. I don't know, Vrix, I said honestly, but I'm starting to think we should be grateful they're on our side. The report I filed after that incident became required reading for every Galactic Enforcement officer in the sector. The video footage was classified at the highest levels, not because it showed anything particularly secret, but because Command was worried about the psychological impact on other species. Turned out, the idea that humans could bond with predators, could convince them to fight and die on command, was terrifying to a lot of folks. Me? I was just glad the little girl had whispered go at the right moment, because if she'd been one of the hostages still in the main group when we eventually moved in with our assault team, if Scrapper had decided we were the threat, I don't think it would have gone well for us. And that, more than anything else I'd seen in my career, made me understand something fundamental about humans. They didn't just survive on their planet. They befriended it, made allies of its deadliest creatures, turned evolution's finest killers into loyal companions. What kind of species does that? What kind of world produces both the child and the badger, and allows them to become friends? I didn't have answers then. I'm not sure I do now, even after everything that came next. But I knew one thing for certain, as I watched Nina Torres carry her honey badger home to safety. Humanity was going to change the galaxy in ways we couldn't possibly predict, and honestly, I was terrified to find out what that meant. 3 months after the Verdant 9 incident, I got called into a briefing that would make me wish I'd retired early. The conference room on Station Helix 7 was packed, representatives from 12 different species, all looking various shades of uncomfortable. Admiral Thorne, a Quellan with more decorations on his uniform than I had years in service, stood at the head of the table. His expression told me this wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. Officer Krell, he said, gesturing to an empty seat. Thank you for coming on short notice. I sat, nodding to the others around the table. Most I recognized, council members, military brass, intelligence operatives, the kind of crowd that only gathered when something had gone spectacularly wrong. I assume this is about the colony situation, I said, in a manner of speaking. Thorne activated the holographic display. An image appeared. Nina Torres, smiling in what looked like a school photo. Beside her, naturally, sat Scrapper. What do you know about bonding protocols? I frowned. The psychological assessment procedures? Standard stuff for therapy animals, emotional support creatures. Most civilized species have some variation. Most civilized species, repeated a Vexian diplomat named Sora, her voice dripping with disdain, bond with creatures that can't kill them. Ah, so that's what this was about. The honey badger incident has caused significant concern among the council, Thorne continued. We've received formal complaints from 17 member species demanding that humans register all potentially dangerous bonded animals as weapons. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Every eye in the room turned to me. With respect, sir, have you met humans? They're not going to register their pets as weapons. Then they'll face sanctions, snapped a Morthian security chief whose name I didn't catch. We cannot allow citizens to walk around with uncontrolled predators. It's a public safety nightmare. The honey badger was controlled, I pointed out. Extremely controlled, actually. It did exactly what the child asked, stopped when commanded, and didn't harm any of the hostages. It killed 14 trained soldiers who were actively threatening to murder children. Context matters. Sora leaned forward, her tendrils twitching with agitation. You're missing the larger point, Officer Krell. This isn't an isolated incident. Since your report circulated, we've been investigating human bonding practices across all colonies. The results are disturbing. The holographic display shifted, showing image after image. A human child riding something called a horse, an animal that could apparently crush skulls with its rear legs. A teenager swimming with dolphins, creatures with jaws strong enough to break bones. An elderly human walking alongside a wolf, which looked suspiciously like the attack dogs some militaries used. More images. Humans with snakes wrapped around their necks. Humans holding spiders the size of dinner plates. Humans cuddling with bears that outweighed them 10 to 1. They bond with everything, Sora said, her voice rising. Predators, venomous creatures, animals that could kill them without trying. And they do it casually, like it's the most natural thing in the galaxy. Because for them, it is, I said quietly. The room went silent. Thorn studied me. Explain. I stood, moving to the display. I've been doing my own research since Verdant 9. Talked to xenobiologists, anthropologists, even a few human historians. Here's what I learned. Humans didn't conquer their planet. They partnered with it. I pulled up a file I'd prepared, just in case. 30,000 years ago, humans bonded with wolves, turned them into dogs. They've been doing it ever since with hundreds of species. Cats, horses, birds, reptiles, even insects. They don't see these creatures as tools or weapons. They see them as family. That's insane, muttered the Morthian. Is it? I challenged. How many of us have empathy for other species? Real, genuine emotional connection? We tolerate other races, work with them out of necessity or mutual benefit. But humans, they'll cry over a dying pet that only lives a fraction of their lifespan. They'll risk their lives to save animals that serve no practical purpose. They form genuine emotional bonds with creatures that can't even speak their language, which makes them dangerous, Sora insisted. Or valuable, I countered. Think about what I witnessed on Verdant 9. That child didn't order Scrapper to attack, she asked him. And he chose to protect her because he loved her. Not programming, not training, not fear. Love. Admiral Thorn's expression was unreadable. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we're approaching this wrong. You can't regulate human bonding any more than you can regulate human emotion. It's fundamental to who they are. Instead of treating it as a threat, maybe we should understand it as an asset. An asset? Sora's laugh was bitter. You want us to weaponize human pets? No. I want us to recognize that humans have a unique ability that no other species in the Galactic Council possesses. They can communicate with and earn the loyalty of Earth creatures in ways we can't replicate. That's not a security threat. That's a strategic advantage. The room erupted into argument. Half the representatives agreed with me. The other half demanded stricter controls on human colonies. Voices overlapped. Translator devices struggled to keep up, and I sat back down, exhausted. This was going to be a long meeting. It took another 4 hours of debate before Admiral Thorn called for a recess. I escaped to the observation deck, staring out at the stars and wondering if I just made things better or worse. You argued well in there. I turned to find a human woman standing behind me, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing a civilian jumpsuit with a diplomatic badge. She extended her hand in that peculiar human greeting gesture. Captain Yuki Tanaka, she said. Human colonial representative. I've been waiting outside that room for 6 hours hoping someone would eventually defend our position. I shook her hand carefully. Human grips were surprisingly strong. Officer Krell. And I wasn't defending a position so much as stating facts. Either way, thank you. She moved to stand beside me, looking out at the stars. They're scared of us, aren't they? Terrified, I admitted, though they'd never say it outright. Because of what happened on Verdant 9. That was the catalyst. But I think it goes deeper. Most species see Earth and think death world. Extreme gravity, aggressive wildlife, unpredictable weather. Then they see humans thriving there, making friends with the things that should be killing them. And it breaks their understanding of how survival works. Tanaka smiled, but it was sad. We're not trying to be frightening. We just love our animals. Is that really so strange? Yes, I said honestly. To most species, it's completely alien. We don't have the capacity for that kind of cross-species bonding. We can't imagine trusting a creature that could hurt us. But you trust us, she pointed out. Humans could hurt you too. That's different. You're sentient, you can be reasoned with. So can dogs. And horses. And yes, even honey badgers. if you know how to communicate." She paused. "Scrapper didn't attack randomly, you know. Nina raised him from infancy, taught him boundaries, showed him affection, made him part of her family. He protected her because that's what family does. I saw the footage. I believe you." "Then help me convince them." Tanaka turned to face me directly. "That meeting is going to resume, and they're going to push for restrictions that will fundamentally change human culture. Registration, control chips, mandatory separation of children from bonded animals. It'll devastate our colonies. What do you want me to do?" "Come to Earth," she said simply. "See how we really live. Meet families, visit bonding centers, understand what this means to us. Then report back with the truth, not speculation or fear." I hesitated. I'd never been to Earth. Few non-humans had. The gravity alone was daunting, and the stories about Earth wildlife made most species avoid it entirely. But I thought about Nina Torres, tears on her face, whispering go to her best friend. I thought about the calm certainty in her eyes, the absolute trust between child and creature. "All right," I said. "I'll go." 3 weeks later, I stood on Earth for the first time, my pressure suit calibrated to help with the crushing gravity, and immediately understood why humans were different. Everything here wanted to kill you. Not maliciously, just casually. The plants had thorns and toxins. The insects had stingers and venom. Even the weather seemed personally aggressive, shifting from pleasant to deadly with minimal warning, and humans walked through it all like they were strolling through a park. Tanaka had arranged a comprehensive tour. I visited ranches where humans worked alongside horses that could cave in my skull with one kick. I watched trainers swim with dolphins that could ram through my ribcage. I stood in a rehabilitation center while a human woman hand-fed a bear that outweighed her 3-to-1. Every encounter followed the same pattern: mutual respect, clear communication, genuine affection. On my 5th day, Tanaka took me to a facility called Second Chance's Animal Sanctuary in what humans called Colorado. The director, an older human named Marcus Webb, greeted us at the entrance. "Welcome to the madhouse," he said cheerfully. "Fair warning, we mostly work with rescues here, so some of our residents are a bit temperamental." Temperamental turned out to be a massive understatement. We walked through enclosures, housing creatures that belonged in military arsenals, not care facilities. Wolves, tigers, something called a crocodile, that was literally just teeth and armor plating with legs. But it was the last enclosure that stopped me cold. "This is Rex," Marcus said, gesturing to the largest land predator I'd ever seen. "African lion. Came to us 3 years ago from an illegal breeding operation. Malnourished, abused, aggressive. Everyone said he was too dangerous to rehabilitate." The lion stared at us with eyes that held cold calculation. Every muscle in his body spoke of coiled violence. Then Marcus opened the enclosure gate and walked inside. "Are you insane?" I blurted. Marcus laughed. "Probably. But watch." He approached the lion slowly, speaking in low, calm tones. The lion watched him come, tail twitching. Then, just as I was about to call for security, the massive creature lowered his head and pressed it against Marcus's chest. Marcus scratched behind the lion's ears. The lion purred, a sound like distant thunder, but unmistakably content. "How?" I managed. "Time," Marcus said simply. "Patience. Respect." Rex needed to learn that not all humans were going to hurt him. Once he understood that, once we'd built trust, everything changed. He's still a wild animal, still dangerous if provoked. But he knows me, he trusts me, and I trust him. I watched them together, the human and the apex predator, and something clicked in my mind. This wasn't about dominance or control. It wasn't about weapons or strategic assets. It was about connection. Humans had survived their death world not by conquering it, but by learning to speak its language. They'd looked at creatures that could kill them and said, "Let's be friends," and somehow, impossibly, it had worked. That night, I sent my preliminary report to Admiral Thorne, 3 pages of observations, interviews, and recommendations. The core message was simple. Humanity's ability to bond with Earth creatures wasn't a threat to be controlled. It was a gift to be respected. The Council's response came faster than I expected. They wanted me back at Helix 7 immediately. They'd made a decision. The return briefing was smaller this time. Just Thorne, Sora, and 3 other senior council members. Their faces told me everything I needed to know before anyone spoke. Your report was very thorough, Thorne began carefully, and quite compelling. But, I prompted. But the council has decided to implement restrictive protocols anyway, Sora finished. All bonded animals above a certain danger threshold must be registered. Owners must carry permits. Public spaces will have designated zones for bonded creatures. Failure to comply will result in removal of the animal and potential criminal charges. I felt my temper rise. You're making a mistake. These aren't weapons or pets. They're family members. Humans won't comply. Then humans will face consequences, the Morthian security chief said coldly. You'll start a war over this. Don't be dramatic, Sora snapped. They're animals. They're not just animals. I was on my feet now, both fists on the table. You weren't there on Verdun 9. You didn't see what I saw. That honey badger didn't fight because of training or instinct. He fought because someone he loved was in danger. That's not programming. That's choice. That's loyalty. That's something none of us can create or replicate or control with permits and registration. Silence filled the room. Admiral Thorne spoke quietly. Your objection is noted, Officer Krell. But the decision is final. You'll be assigned to enforcement teams implementing the new protocols on human colonies. Your experience makes you uniquely qualified. I won't do it. Every head turned toward me. I won't enforce regulations that are fundamentally unjust. You want to punish humans for having something we don't, for being capable of connections we can't understand. That's not security. That's jealousy. Officer Krell. Thorne's voice hardened. You're dangerously close to insubordination. Then I'm close to insubordination. I straightened. I'll submit my resignation effective immediately. I won't be part of this. I left the conference room to stunned silence. 3 months later, I sat in a small office on Earth's surface, gravity still uncomfortable but manageable, reviewing applications for what humans called interspecies liaison training. Turned out, I wasn't the only one who disagreed with the Council's decision. 47 officers from various species had resigned rather than enforce the protocols. Captain Tanaka had offered us all positions helping bridge the gap between human colonists and nervous galactic neighbors. My current job involved reviewing bonding assessments and mediating disputes. Boring paperwork, mostly. But occasionally, I got cases that reminded me why I'd made the right choice, like the file on my desk now. Nina Torres, age 8, requesting permission to bring Scrapper on a school trip to Station Helix 7. I smiled and stamped the approval without hesitation. Somewhere in the galaxy, council members were probably still arguing about human bonding protocols and danger assessments and registration requirements. But here on Earth, a little girl was going to show her classmates the stars, with her best friend by her side. And honestly, that felt like the victory that mattered. Because in the end, love doesn't need permits. It just needs trust. And maybe, just maybe, the rest of the galaxy would figure that out eventually. I looked out my office window at the mountains in the distance, where humans walked with their wolves and rode their horses, and lived alongside creatures that could kill them with casual ease. They'd survived their death world by making friends with it. The rest of us were still learning how. But we'd get there. We had good teachers.